It's as if we've never talked to you.
Never.
How long have you been in captivity?
Since September 16th.
Well, we take it to you because all the journalists in the world and the universe talk to you.
Yes, probably.
How long have you been in captivity?
22 months.
A person has been in captivity for 22 months. In general, we have a funny story today. These are representatives of the Freedom of Russia Legion. They expressed a desire to fight for Ukraine, but they expressed such a desire not when they were captured, but from the very beginning. And I have a proposal to have such a worldwide existential, I would say, conversation between you. Just a talk. Do you mind?
No.
Do you mind?
No.
Well, then I'll be here asking questions and facilitating your conversation. Please introduce yourself. What is your name? Fine. I'm Caesar, Deputy Commander of the Freedom of Russia Legion.
Let's get acquainted. I'm Domovoi Stormtrooper and just a good guy from Krasnodar.
Nice to meet you.
Actually, you can already start communicating with each other and tell each other how you got to Ukraine.
Yeah, I guess we'll start with you guys right from day one. How do you get here?
In 2021, I was convicted under Articles 158/4 and 166/4 under 105/1. They gave me a sentence of 3 years. When the term came to an end, they gave me a new one. I was in a maximum security colony. The last time they'd add 10 years to me. And then I arrived at the Ministry of Defense on the 5th or 6th. On the 11th, I was taken to the front line. We got to
Have
the
you been
Wagners.
offered something or given an
A
ultimatum?
proposal, simply a proposal. Besides everything, I just have a lot more articles they suspended, and when the terms comes to an end, they did not condone it. I have no choice, I'm only 23 years old. They said that this was an opportunity, and I followed this opportunity. Maybe you'll be lucky, maybe not. If you're lucky, you'll survive and return home. If not, then no. My fate is such that I can't do anything about it, in order not to spend my whole life in prison. I turned out that I got near Soldier. And that's where all the fun began.
Would you like to atone for this act, or do you not feel it?
Well, of course I would like to atone, especially for the videos they showed me. Bakhmut, children killed by our missiles. You know this very well
Did
yourself.
you see this video before you joined the army?
They showed me this already in Kramatorsk, I guess. From there I was sent to Kharkiv, to a pretrial detention center, and then
If
here.
you had seen this video earlier, would you have joined
It's
the army?
unlikely.
Would you stay in prison?
Maybe. Yeah, I can't tell you exactly.
Was there any access to information in prison? Internet?
There seemed to be the internet, but the connection was poor. Social networks could barely load on regular phones, and only the main ones had smartphones.
I have such an interesting question. I don't know if you were asked it or not. You're a criminal from the criminal world. The criminal world lives by its own rules.
Well, yes, you need to stick to the rules. Some people adhere to them, and some people live by
The
them.
criminal world is led by thieves in law.
There are some.
They establish by what rules the criminal world lives.
Yes, because it's convenient for them. They adapt them to themselves.
I'm wondering what Russian thieves in law say and think about the war. I think that from the point of view of the thieves, I wanted to kill Ukrainians. It is the wrong thing to do.
Of course, it's wrong. They even announced that anyone who goes to Ukraine will be declared a bastard. After that, one person came and said, "Guys, this is your life. Survive and return to our ranks." After that, everyone left. I don't hide it, I just work in the canteen. And here I also work in the canteen. I'm not ashamed of like some people are. I was an errand boy, as they say here, a servant, I cooked food, delivered food, and washed the dishes. I'm not ashamed of this. I'm just helping it, that's all. I stood at the counter and I had everything. I could easily call home, smoke, and make tea. I had everything. And I left the criminal world in 2019, when it was necessary to work for the common good. And they lined their pockets, exchanged one car for another. That's how it is. After that, I just started serving, and that's it.
Sergey, how did you get here?
I'm a career military man of the armed forces of the Russia Federation. On February 23, I was in the Kursk region as a part of my unit. On February 23, 2022, we received an order that we would cross the borders of Ukrainian territory. On February 24, 2022, as a part of my unit, crossed the border of Ukraine. I was with my squad at the very end of the column. My task was to escort Kamaz. And after moving, it was in the Chernihiv region, one of the cars broke down, and we remained to guard it until the driver fixed the problem and continued driving. He could not fix it, and the commander decided to leave the car and tried to find our people. There were 9 of us. Tried to find someone from our unit. After which, we ended up in one of the swamps in our armored personal carrier. It was impossible to get the car out using improvised means. We tried it in every possible way, but doing this manually was almost impossible. The commander decided that we wouldn't destroy the car and go on foot in the direction from which we crossed the border. And having destroyed the car, there were 9 of us, moved out, taking the necessary things in the right direction, from which we crossed the border. On the first day of our movement, when we were in one of the ravines in the Chernihiv region, near one of the settlements, we are surrounded by territorial defense forces. 2-3 minute shooting battle ensued. One soldier from my unit was seriously wounded, and the commander from the territorial defense began negotiations with our commander, saying that our further resistance was useless because we were surrounded. That's how we ended up in captivity.
Have you had any cases of refusal to carry out this criminal order in your unit?
No.
So everyone went like a herd of sheep? They were told to attack and everyone went.
But were there any conversations? Did someone discuss among themselves that they didn't want to go and that chaos was happening?
Perhaps this was after crossing the border, because after that I didn't see my unit anymore.
Tell me, your conversation is going on as equals, but you don't want to ask them how they got to Ukraine. Aren't you interested?
Why, very interesting. How did you even get into the war?
I got there very easily. 5 in the morning I saw rockets flying across Kiev and other cities. I, like the decent person I consider myself to be, as a Christian, I could not stand by, look at this disgrace, and be covered in dirt. I am a Russian person. My country attacked. I either accept this and take her side, your side, and go kill my neighbors because the leader told me so. Or I take the side of good. and I fight with evil. With you, with my fellow citizens. Look at you through the crosshairs. I kill you, and frankly, I have no regrets. As a Christian, I have no remorse whatsoever, because what you did here was terrible. You fought against Nazism. We can repeat it. Grandfather fought. You're repeating here, but you're not doing what the defenders, liberators did, but repeating all the exploits of the Nazis. Killed, raped children, destroyed, ruined cities. I have been observing the Russian world with my own eyes for a year and a half now, at the front line. I see perfectly well that you will only endure destruction and death, and you continue to carry it. Therefore, I made a clear conclusion for myself. I will either fall into the ground or I will end up here and defend the Ukrainian people. This despite the fact that I am a patriot of my motherland. I love Russia very much. I really love Russia, which Putin brought to such a terrible state. He makes fools of you. He keeps you in misery. And taking advantage of your poverty, he offers you to earn dishonest money by killing your neighbors, or, like Daniel, he offers freedom in exchange for another crime.
Yes.
Yes, and you make your choice.
It doesn't even look like a choice. It looks like an ultimatum.
That is, the war in Ukraine is a consequence of the fact that Putin has been made by Russia for 25 years. A very simple consequences. If we take some Buryatia, it turns out that out of every 7th family, one man went to the front line. This is either a father or a son or a brother. Well, why did you go to the front? Probably not because he has a good life in Buryatia, a salary of 300,000 rubles, rights and freedoms right. And probably because Putin has built such a system that he feels like a humiliated slave, a beggar. And in order to avoid this, to earn money for an apartment, a good car, to increase his social status in the eyes of the same people, he comes here to kill. Well, or accordingly die. And you know, very often they do not return dead. Their families do not receive compensation. What they are promised does not always come true in life. I ended up here precisely because I, as a Russian person, as a Christian, do not intend to put up with this evil. I will fight to the last until Ukraine is liberated, and Russia, or our homeland, is liberated from this scum that has been sitting in the Kremlin for 25 years. Whatever sphere of our state we take as an example, even the church, even the army, even science, even the law, even the lowest municipal government, everything is bad. Everywhere is complete collapse. And at the same time, they tell you all that Biden is to blame for this. He sits in his White House and signs laws to increase egg prices in Russia. And he personally unscrewed the light bulbs in the hallways. Do you understand? It's because of him that your roads are bad. It is because of him that you work for 50,000 rubles a month. Because of him they raised the retirement age. Or maybe the British Prime Minister is doing all this. Just think about it. Russia is one of the richest countries in the world. 40% of the world's resources are in Russia. A huge amount of land and water resources. And yet you live in such poverty. Maybe you need to ask yourself the question of where the real enemies are. Maybe they are not in Kiev, not in Washington, not in Brussels. Maybe they have already planted seeds in Moscow a long time ago, and they just use you and that's it.
I apologize for interrupting. Probably everyone remembered the moment when the governor was imprisoned in the Far East.
We just wanted to talk about this.
I want to discuss this. At this time I already had a punishment. There were rallies that, in general, quickly ended. I lived in slums on the Amur. Also, as an orphan from an orphanage, I should have received housing. I didn't get an apartment, because Putin doesn't give it. and Forgal was handing out apartments at that moment. I received a document from him that after being released from prison, I must come and write an application for an apartment. After 3 months, his detention is shown on television. Moscow took the factories and everything else. We had a factory there, my mother worked there. The point is so that no matter where you look, they rule. And the salary is 35,000 rubles. Is it possible to live on it? That's why I dealt with crimes. I was also once on the Amur fishing. Indigenous people are allowed to catch only 80 sturgeon per season. Is it possible to live on them? 80 sturgeon. Is the cost of this caviar enough to cover the expenses of clothing the children for school?
Well, do you understand where these problems come from?
Yes.
And that this problem should not have been solved in this way? Shouldn't you take the criminal path?
There's nothing you can do there. As soon as you try to open your mouth, certain people quickly close it.
Why this?
Because they don't like you.
No, because there are few who dare to say anything.
Maybe even so.
How did I get to Ukraine? I too actually don't have a very complicated story. I began to understand a long time ago that things are bad in Russia. I thought the same as you. I was afraid. I also understood that if I expressed my opinion, they would look at me as a fool, or in the worst case, they would cause problems. You can earn fines, criminal liability, they can come up with anything. Before the start of the war, I wanted to go to Poland. I was a little short on time because the offensive began abruptly on the February 24th. Okay, let's stay home. I received a called-up paper. I didn't actually receive it, but in the very first wave of mobilization, they called me directly from the Rural Military Registration and Enlistment Office. Dima, let's go. I refused. I was hiding around my homeland for some time. Then I applied for the Legion and left for Georgia. I lived there for 7 months and waited until they invite me, until they checked me. That's it, and that's how I arrived. That's how I got here. I just realized that I had two options. I can live peacefully somewhere in other countries, but without my homeland. And I will never see my family. I will leave everything that is dear to me, and what is dear to me will remain in the past, in the clutches of this scum. Or I'll try to take them back to my homeland and bring them back, because I, like many of my compatriots, understand that either we will return it or it will rot there completely. It will because similar to North Korea or China. I don't know what will happen there. I realized for myself that I was ready to die for this. That's it. War can no longer be avoided. That's how I came across it. And it turns out that you and I seem to be in the same war,
It turns
but
out
we
like
have
this.
completely different paths. And you need to know, understand where exactly you made a mistake. I know you know this is a mistake, but where exactly did you make it? And what to do with it next? Just answer these questions for yourself.
I realized this even when I got to the positions and saw all this incongruity. I righted the positions and saw everything. How prisoners come on prisoners. You must go where the Ministry of Defense said, even if you don't know where exactly. You just go. Ukrainian missiles flies, people die. 10 people passed, but 2 returned. It's clear that there is a war, but given normal order. No comment, we ourselves had already begun to keep distance between each other. We'll learn about this later. And there are 2 of us left from the Wagners, the rest from Ministry of Defense. Everyone walks thoughtlessly like a herd of sheep, and children are dying. Turn it 18 years old, go. He's not yet 18 years old, but he's already received a call-up paper. It's your birthday tomorrow and you're still going, you're going to war. There were 30 18 years old in my position with me. They were sent for positions, 4 returned. They were not assigned a commander or an escort. The plane dropped 2 shells, 4 corpses. That's all. One guy decided to look at the kamikaze drone. His head was turned off. I've seen enough of all this house. One guy said that he couldn't dig, his hands were already covered in blood, his legs couldn't hold him, he'd been digging for 24 hours already. The elder takes off the safety and shoots him straight in the chest.
What do you think will happen next? What will your fate be like next?
I don't know what will happen next, honestly, I don't know. The guys came, I already talked to many. And to be honest, I'm in shock after all these videos and after these places I saw where they took me for a ride and showed me where Russian missiles landed and children died. Where are the women in the video? They said there are children right there. And I understand that this is not fake because I'm driving in the same place as in the video. And the missile lies there.
They took us too. We have a mandatory curriculum and they show us everything, the places they visited.
Sorry to interrupt, but after everything I saw, after all the training, we were told not to surrender. Each of us had a grenade, and if we did not use it, we would be considered traitors. And there are 3 of us here who saw this. And some of us were even forced to dismember. I myself cut an arm, a leg, a head, while the person was still alive. There was no choice. Either you lie down next to him, or you chop it yourself. There is a man with the last name Zaitsev. He also chopped people. And the second man, he say he didn't do it, that he did. There were 150 of us. The older man would just point the machete at the man, and you had to do it. They took doctors on these people. What do you do with the limb avulsion, pneumothorax, head injury, and so on?
A practical approach.
Either just bury it or it's used. And after all, the remains are put in a box. A mixture of TNT is added to the hole.
Sorry, this is your first interview here.
Why no, there was one in other place.
I want to immediately point out, man, that we have no goal of recruiting you somewhere. This is just a conversation between 4 Russian citizens, 2 of whom are on one side and 2 on the other. And our viewer will be a fair judge. He will evaluate your motives, our motives, and will decide who has truth and justice, and who has no truth, and how can you still get out of this situation. Remember June 24th. We cheered for Prigozhin with huge stacks of popcorn. For the first time in my life I thought, come on, Zhenya, forward to the Kremlin. We of course were really waiting for some kind of revolution to happen there so that they like spiders in a jar would bite each other a little. Well, unfortunately, Prigozhin did not have a masculine character and intelligence. Well, then, as the official version says, he snorted cocaine and blew himself up with grenades from the inside. So we will repeat the same thing sooner or later, only with slightly different nuances. And when we reach the Kremlin, we will tear off this reptile's head. And they will all be punished for what they did. The oligarchs who made the missiles that are now killing Ukrainian children will be punished. Propagandists who pour dirt into fragile minds and make morons out of people will be punished. The chairman of election commission who throws stacks of paper with votes for Putin into the ballot boxes will be punished. School principals who lined up children in the shape of the letter Z and told them that there are Nazis in Ukraine and it's okay to kill them will be punished. Believe me, in a year and a half there, I have never once heard a reprimand for my Russian language. Also, I still don't communicate in Ukrainian. Also, I understand Ukrainian speech, but forgive me, I was a little busy and didn't have time to learn. I'm fighting here, I'm a Russian, and fighting there so that Ukrainians can speak their language calmly. And on the other side, there are people like you who believe that there are no Ukrainian people. It turns out that borscht, embroidered shirt, and the Ukrainian language were invented by the Austro-Hungarian General Staff. That this is such a serious strategic plan. And that's how it goes. Now surnames are forcibly changed in the occupied territories. They change the ending of the last name to fit the rules of the Russian language, and that's all, and the person seems to be Russian. Do you know where the war will end? Don't know? It will end either in Moscow or Khabarovsk, yes. And it will be completed by simple Russian men like you. Simple Ivans, Vasils, Stepans. And they will end it when they realize that there is nothing for them to do here on a foreign land. That they have their own old destroyed house that needs to be rebuilt. And that this idiot Putin will not bring anything good to Russia. He will drive his people to death to the last. Will 300,000 die? No problem. What did Zhukov say? Are women given birth to new ones? And again and again and again. And the death certificate will come. Has anyone in Russia started to live better because of this? No. No one is better off, but you, like rats from a fairy tale, walk with the sound of a pipe. And so Putin comes with a pipe, and you open your mouth and follow him. Prigozhin at least showed what needs to be done. A group of 5,000 people by military standards is a trifle. Did someone stop him? Someone came out to meet him and said, "Let's lie down like grandfather near Moscow and we won't meet the point." Kadyrov's troops turned out to be the most vigorous. At least they moved out. We even filmed a few TikToks. But unfortunately got stuck in a traffic jam.
There were also excavator operators.
Well, yes, another 28 excavator workers.
This is the last strategic force.
That's all, guys. You just need to gather your will into a fist and understand that there are no enemies here, that all enemies are in Russia. Russia can be made into a wonderful country. This is the richest country in the world. The richest country in the world. You just need to make sure that the people can control themselves. We all follow it and are following the events in Khabarovsk very closely. We all understand perfectly well who the board removed. The Russian government removed a businessman who was loved and respected in Khabarovsk.
Who does something for people.
He cared about his land.
Who was not a member of the United Russia Party.
Yes, at least.
He was the first to against Putin, and he said that if he applies for the presidency, people will follow him.
I'll tell you this, guys, that he will soon return to politics. When we liberate Russia, when we open the dungeons and release both political prisoners and people who are imprisoned for minor offenses, those who are imprisoned for stealing geese, in order to then be sent from prison to war. How come? I say again that we have no goal of recruiting or agitating you somewhere. Maybe you can convince us. Maybe you will tell us that Vladimir Putin is a wonderful president, takes care of Russia. He has been taking care of it for 25 years. You see that it's getting better and better, and he presses on pet peeves.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
I'm a sensible person. I can distinguish, or at least try to distinguish truth from fiction. I will not act as a lawyer, a defender of my president. All the same, one person cannot rule such a large state. It's difficult for us. He may have people under his command who are trying to profit from his rule. The head of state has hundreds of subordinates. That's thousands of people who govern the regions and so on. He alone cannot keep track of everything. There are special supervisory agencies for this and so on. As long as there are people in these structures who expose our country to corruption and the like, then things will go badly. A very big burden for one man. And if there are such people around him, then he needs to deal with them first.
Sergey, great question.
The most relevant question. I was waiting for him.
We have something to answer to this. There's something to be said. This man who was left without a family says that he is married to Russia. He said that it's hard for him, that he rose and rose like a slave.
He doesn't not reign, but works.
Yes, it works like hell. And for 25 years he has been trying to place the best people in leadership positions. Yes, he is looking for selected talents. No matter how you look at some colonel or minister, one is better than other. It is immediately obvious that they selected the best of the best. Even under Yeltsin, General Lev Rokhlin was killed. A wonderful general, a wonderful person, an excellent commander. Why was he killed? Because he was ready to depose Yeltsin. Mr. Lebed, Mr. Shamanov were killed. Many governors and political figures who did not agree with the Putin regime were killed.
Very revealing.
He was a very bright personality. His death is a blow for Russia. Yes. Again, as Putin's puppets say.
What exactly were the funds used to build the palace in Gelendzhik? Because we all understand perfectly well that this is being given to Putin. This place was taken over by no one, namely him. How much money was it built for and for what merit? What do you think?
They say that it was built with all the money from the villages, but I don't know where the money for it came from. I don't know what the money is spent on and where it comes from.
Maybe you have some personal thoughts on this matter. Money can't just appear out of him from here, can it? The same thing doesn't happen. It cannot come from thin air, it comes from somewhere. What do you think? What is your version about this? How do you explain it to yourself?
Don't know. Because any head of state who has such resources, it seems to me, will live not in a dugout, but not in a cave.
Okay, head of state, and whose resources, as you say, does the head of state own? Whose resources are they? His personal or the people who live in this state?
Well, those resources that belong to the people.
So it turns out he doesn't own them.
Sorry, can I say?
Yes.
So you say that he doesn't own anything, but he made it so that he now owns almost everything. Even if you take the usual Politetamur River, his people are standing there too.
That is from the director from the story, he became the owner of the
Everything
store.
is made so that it belongs to him. His people are everywhere, and he takes money for himself from the state budget.
Do you agree with this point of view now?
It seems to me, yes, it cannot be otherwise.
This is his personal opinion.
Why can people in New Zealand or Portugal meet the president on the street? Why do you think that is? Because he is loved and respected. He is in no danger there. Can you imagine that Putin will ride a bicycle tomorrow? If he goes, Moscow will be empty. Well, yes, it will clear everything. Why is this happening? Because these are simply representatives of the people who find themselves in power. They live and govern the party in such a way that they are not ashamed in front of the voters. And they are not afraid. He can go to the beach like the same Biden. There no one was kicked out of the beach and there were no Navy SEALs surfacing like snipers.
There were no snipers posted on the towers.
By the way, you still haven't told me how you got to Ukraine. That is, you told the motive. He didn't say how exactly you got there. Can this be told? No problem, just details. February 23 at 5, I wake up for work, rockets are flying, I see all this horror. Where? In St. Petersburg, where I have been living for 20 years. I started writing to various consulates and Ukrainian embassies. I wrote to the embassy at 9 or 10. Azerbaijan, Georgia, all neighboring countries, Finland, Estonia, they read it and don't understand what to do with it. The Russia wants to go fight for Ukraine against the Russians. Then I saw that the Freedom of Russia Legion had appeared. I went to the official links, checked what it was and go in touch. They sent me a questionnaire, a form to fill out. I filled it all out and in the end crossed the border, and from Europe I arrived on the territory of Ukraine. I passed all the checks, then went through training, and since the beginning of autumn I have already fought against Russia. I don't regret anything. Honestly, if I met you on the battlefield, I would kill you and my hand wouldn't tremble, honestly. Nothing personal, just
mutual.
this war. I just defending Ukrainians and you came here to kill them.
We are ordinary mercenaries. We have no choice. Either a clean sheet or a criminal article. This is still an easy case. When they gave out a machine gun, some, believe me, 18 and 19 years old, maybe a little older, were like fanatics. You know what fanaticism is. They have watched the films and want to fight. I noted this at the training ground where we were taught by the Wagner group, and they invented something new, and with great pleasure they dismembered the person. I'm not afraid, honestly. If we were on the battlefield, we would have no choice. There are the say depending on your luck. Either you kill me or I kill you. I didn't tell you how I got captured, did I? I'll tell you. On September 11, 2023, I left the position and we went to dig in. Because they told us that if we don't dig up 1.5 kilometers in 12 hours, they will kill us. There were 10 of us. 3 people were killed in my eyes. I realized that this was not a joke. I've been trailing, spent 4 days in the woods. I'm not afraid. I have my life, they have theirs. I don't care if they judge me. Gone. 16 hours later, I came to an intersection on the E40 highway. Your machine gunner got the drop on me. His name is Bogdan. That's it. They gave me first aid. I kept wondering how it would be. They pulled me out and evacuated me to their position. Provided medical assistance, feed. I won't say that they spoke to me softly. It's clear that no. He says, why shouldn't I respect you? You're a warrior. I'm a warrior. We are on opposite sides of the war. You carry out your orders, I carry out mine. I stand in defense of my homeland. You're going for a known reason. This is your life. I shot at your legs because we need to return our soldiers from captivity. There is a video of how I was captured. You can find it online. Bogdan posted it. I told everything how it all happened, and I'm not ashamed of it. My only concern is how are my parents doing in Russia. What they will say about this worries me. And not that I will go to war against Russia for the children. There are some criteria for war: borders, where the war is going on and where the civilians are. Everyone knows this very well. The officers told me that where the war is going on, shells are falling, but the civilian population is not affected. But when I was taken around the places in the video and there's a missile that says for children, they write on the Russian missile for children and they kill children with it.